I'm in the big leagues, told her don't miss me. Ballin' like Houston, ayy, feeling like Whitney. I need a bag, bruh, send it through quickly. I'm making his dog, like I'm in the big leagues. Told him that I gotta go, dog.
Welcome back to another episode of CeCe Connects. This is your host, Danny, Cannabis Entrepreneurial Dialogues. Our mission is to create spaces for people of color, brands of color, minorities in the cannabis industry to be able to educate and empower our communities through storytelling, experiences, and really through representation. As you guys can see, we're here at Greenlabel manufacturing and cultivation facility. Yeah. We're sitting here with another owner of Greenlabel, CeCe, and we're going to really dive deep into who she is, how she got here. But first and foremost, before we do that, subscribe to our YouTube channel at CeCe Connects, CED Connects. Also follow us on Instagram at CED_Connects for all the live updates, all these episodes coming through, and much more content as we roll out season 3. But again, going back, we're at Greenlabel here in Chatsworth, and I'm excited because we have CeCe in the building. Yay. CeCe, thank you for being here. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I truly appreciate you taking the time to hear my story, hear what I'm all about, and how I, stepped into the cannabis community and into this space. So I'm really excited, and it's such an honor to actually be a part of even your growth, your movement, and what you're trying to do for a lot of social equity, people of color. So I'm very excited.
Thank you for that. And I'm excited to hear your story, and I'm excited to be able to share. Yeah. Because I know we've talked already just leading up to this, and there's a lot of pieces that, I find important. So, but before all that, we like to get started by knowing a little bit more about you, your upbringing, where did you grow up, and what was the message behind cannabis in your household?
Okay, yeah. So my upbringing, I come from a semi-traditional Mexican household. Okay. So I'm sure, many Latinos can relate what that might look like. My dad actually he's actually first generation here. So his place where, my grandmother and everybody was South LA. So where we started, our life, I guess you can say, was in South Los Angeles. Okay. My dad grew up like between Hooper and Naomi 25th, like Jefferson High School area. Got you. So so he's
on Hooper,
Hooper.
I used to live off of Hooper and Manchester.
Okay, yeah. Oh, right, that's way further up. Yeah.
But I used to live right there by. Now there's an El Super there.
Okay.
And I used to live there with some roommates. Shout out to you, Oscar.
Hey, roommates. So we were more like Central Adams area, like further this way. So, my mom is she's also first generation. So, my dad Mexico. From Mexico, yes. Both my parents are from Mexico. So, my dad came here like at the age of 2 or 3. So he obviously was hip. He got to experience the American culture, South LA culture. My mom actually arrived when she was 15, so her experience was a lot more different than my father's, Sure. So my father grew up, speaking English, his household is also very predominantly, obviously my grandma, Mexican, traditional, my great-grandfather. So those same traditions were kind of still brought into when I was a child and growing up. So for, very hardworking. Both parents are entrepreneurs. My dad started a construction company, and my mom did childcare for a lot of the time in our home. So we had like a home childcare in our house.
So you got the babies running around the house. Yes. And what type of program do you guys have? Because I worked in that field before cannabis. I used to work for a childcare agency. Oh wow! Okay, yeah. And what my role there was. I was a preventative health and safety trainer for the agency, and so anyone that wanted to go through the licensing process, they needed to take my course, that 16-hour course of the preventative health and safety and the first aid.
Yeah. And then the CPR. Yeah. You have to do all that.
Did you guys have a small, was it a small home?
Yeah. So we started, it was a small childcare at first. So it was like 12 kids, I think is the max that you can do. So I was very young when that happened. And, you know, for a very long time, we did that until, you know, my mom decided to take a break from it. And then we reopened again, but now as a facility, but in front of Jefferson High School, back in the community, back in South LA.
Back, but now with center-based programs.
Yes, yeah. Of course, you know, as entrepreneurs and your parents are always trying to instill the best in you, right? Do your best, work hard, you know, stay out of trouble. So for me, I obviously tried to do that, but yeah, I rebelled, you know, on certain parts, but never on like use of cannabis or substances. I was a very like dare's child myself. So I was very like, oh my God, don't do this, don't do that. You know, it's gonna fry your brain. You know, I believed in all the propaganda and all the bullshit that was out there, you know? So I didn't tap or connected with cannabis until like I was 18, 19. And even then, so I had a whole situation one time at school with like one of my friends, you know, she had cannabis you know, she had brought flour and she showed me, and dude, I was so bad. Like I was really oh my God, friend, why are you doing this? You shouldn't be doing this. Don't, this is bad for you. Wah, wah, wah. So I was like, don't do that. You know, stay in your line, you know, go to school. Wow, that was that person. But, you know, I rebelled on other stuff. Shh, Dad, no. I rebelled on other stuff, but I was really on it when it came to that. So, I didn't have my first interaction with cannabis until I was like 18, 19. And of course, my dad was like, no, you don't even bring it. Don't think about it. Don't speak about it.
How did Dad find out?
Well, this is crazy, but I actually just really have been more open about my cannabis consumption now. Like I've been very hush-hush about it for a very long time, just because of like, you know, I became a mom at such a young age. You know, I became a mom at 21. So, there's so much stigma that you deal with just alone being a woman, being Latina, and then now you have a mom title, and now you have all the responsibilities that come with that. So for me, it was just like, okay, how do I share that this is something that I enjoy and that, you know, helps me without making it seem like I'm not an adequate parent or I'm not an adequate daughter, or, you know, like it was so hard to like mix the two, you know what I mean? So for a very long time, I was very hush about it. Like, I'm sure he had an idea, you know, my dad's not dumb. My parents already, I mean, none of my parents are. They know, como dice, when you go, I'm already coming both ways or whatever. When you're going, I'm already coming. So that was his favorite saying. So I'm pretty sure he had an idea of what was happening. So, but I was just very quiet about it, you know? So when I did share this, which is actually once I really stepped into the space, like, okay, I'm going to become a social equity applicant, I'm moving, then I was like, okay, Dad, this is what I do. And it wasn't a nice convo, you know, because his biggest fear is always the kids, you know, like there's spiteful people out there. And if you're doing something that they don't like, or for whatever reason, they can easily do a phone call and here you go dealing with the whole situation that you don't need. So for him was very like, you know, the more you're discreet about it for the protection of your children, like, so that's very hard to swallow, right? Because like as a parent, your ultimate priority is to protect your children, right? Like if you really believe in that, because there's a lot of people out there that are ugly people, you know? So, I mean, so for me, it was a battle, like how can you, an internal battle, because it's like, how can I'm not what you think it is, right? Because you're also fed all this propaganda of like, you know, cannabis, you know, not being good, or all the BS that was going on before. So like, to try to, you know, have that conversation and then, you know, see that at the end of the day, I'm still taking care of what I need to take care of, with whether it's my children, my household, my business, myself. You know, I'm not out here just like walling out. Like, this is really what I want to do, and do it for like my generational wealth and create my wealth for my children. So for me, that conflict kind of like settled, and I'm just here.
Yeah. Had you run a business prior to going through the process of applying for licenses?
Ran a business in the cannabis space? No.
But in general,
yes. Like I was very involved in my father's construction and my mom's, childcare business. So I did a lot of like the forms, the paperwork, submitting, applications to the state for food funding and all that stuff. So I did a lot of that back end stuff, and helped out as much as I could to keep the business going and active. So I have some experience, but cannabis is a whole nother
absolutely.
Yeah.
So share with us then, how did the idea of wanting to apply for the license come through, and what was that process like for you? Yeah,
so the idea came in, like I mentioned, my connection with cannabis started at the age of 19, 18. So I was very on and off, and it was not until, I started really hearing about like social equity talks and like, opportunities for entering into the space legally. And like, for me, was very hard to try to do it before because, like I mentioned, my fear was my children, right? Yeah. And there becomes a point where it's just like, okay, I can really come in here and like thrive, because growing up and in South LA, you see a lot of trap shops all over, all around, right? So I was always like, way back when, like one day, like what it would be like to open a store or retail, like it was always in my radar and in me, once I really started connecting with cannabis, it's like I knew this is the community I wanted to be in. Yeah. So, and it's just crazy because I was speaking about how strict my dad was. So he understands the business side of things. Like I say, he's a smart businessman, so he understands the business side of things, and he's now warming up and things are, he grows his little plant now and all that. We changed the dynamics. We changed a little bit the dynamics.
He's taking a few tours.
Right? Yeah. So he understands the entrepreneur side of things. So we had just purchased a property, and my mom and my dad had just purchased a property in San Bernardino County, in San Bernardino City. So it was a pretty big property with a lot of land. So my dad was just like, with one of my uncles that's actually has consumed his, like, since I can remember, he was like the uncle that was like, he was that uncle. He was that uncle. So he and my uncle were actually in the backyard, cleaning it out or whatever. And then they, just sat there. My uncle was like, oh, you know what? Like, we should think about growing back here, right? Like, you have a lot of land space.
Do your own little operation.
Yeah, exactly. So my dad's like, that's not a bad idea. So he called me literally right away the next day possibly. And he was just like, hey, see how we can actually grow out here in San Bernardino. Mind you, like, I still wasn't open with my dad about my consumption or like really like, here's where I'm at. So when
this was even before you even applied for anything.
Yes, exactly. This is where it kind of all started, where I really started doing more research, and I was like, I'm not gonna let this opportunity, like, if he opened the door, I'm walking in through that shit, like run, So like for me, it was just like, okay, I started looking. San Bernardino had just closed their like licensing opportunity. They had just closed it literally a month before. So I was just like, they closed it. Let me see what's happening in LA. Like, let me just, they might as well, right? That's where I'm at. So when I started doing my research, that's when, I came across the social equity, DCR social equity program. And then,
what year was this?
2019. Okay. So I know they were doing it way before there was talks about it, but I really found out when I guess it was all timing, right? Like, everything's all timing. I was meant to find out at the right time. Yeah. It was like when they were going to start accepting the applications for you to be verified as a social equity applicant. So I qualified. I lived in the neighborhood I've been in South LA for my whole entire life, so I qualified, and when I seen that, I was just like, okay, this is my shot. Like, this is really my shot. It reminded me of all the times that, I wanted to really step in the space, but never had the guts to, like, cause it takes guts, like, to all the people that have been out here, you know, just grinding and doing their shit for years and years and years, like that takes a whole lot of strength and guts to do. So I was like, you know, like I had my little guts. Yeah. And I was just like, I'm going for it. So I told him, you know, I shared, and then he's like, let's do this. Like, let's do it. So I was just like, well, let's do it, you know? And, you know, that's when the application process started. I attended, you know, the workshops, and one of them was held at Los Angeles Trade Tech. So I went to go ahead and I showed up.
And these workshops were workshops as to like how to apply, or were these workshops for folks that have already applied, gone through the process, and now you're figuring out like what are next steps?
No, like this was a the first option, but this was a workshops where they're telling you how to apply. What's the next step for you to even, you know, enter into the lottery of getting a retail space. So it's like so at the time, obviously DCR has gone through so many changes, but at the time the talks were, it's like, okay, there was going to be 2 rounds. One was going to be the round with property, and the second round was going to be a round with no property. So everybody that was like, you wanted to get in that first round, like, no matter what. So for me, it was like, how do I find a property? How do I connect and, like, you know, show that I have a property to even be allowed to apply in this round? So I was calling all kinds of different locations. And, you know, one thing, it was hard because as soon as you pick up the phone and say, oh, you know, you're leasing out your space, and you're like, and they ask you the first question, what are you planning on doing? And you say cannabis, it's you do one or two things. Either, nope, they don't entertain it, cut, nope, we're not doing it, bye. And they'll hang up the phone real quick. And then the other one was like, oh, cannabis, oh yeah, your rent's gonna be $15,000, your rent's gonna be sky high rent. And you're just like, what the fuck? Like, how am I gonna do this? Like, you know, so it was a lot of those thoughts, and we were just looking for small. And of course the deadline started getting closer and closer, and it was getting tougher and tougher. And then once I went to that seminar where they're saying, okay, you need to apply in the next month, you know, then, you know, I connected with a group of people that I met there at that workshop, which were the individuals that I applied with into, you know, getting the cannabis license, the retail license and stuff. Okay. Yeah. So that's how that workshop. Yeah.
So when you met these individuals, and from those were the individuals that you applied for, or did you apply for the license separately on your own?
No. So when I was approached, you know, there I was a group of 3. I was approached, and it's like, okay, we have capital and we have a property.
That's,
you know?
what they told you.
Yeah. Okay. We have capital and we have a property that, you know, we've already verified that it's good to go, which was good to go. And one of the partners on there, she was actually the owner of the property. So it was one of her property. Yeah. Okay. So
it sounds promising to you, right? Like,
yeah,
you're like,
definitely.
Oh shit, okay, we're good. I'm in this. All right.
It definitely did sound promising. He's like, you know, okay, you guys got money, the property, right? Our biggest thing was like, okay, the property. So once we went through like the whole contract, we did like a regular operating agreement. I was straight up like, I don't have the capital. I was 1,000%. Like, I don't have the capital. If you're coming in with me as a partner, then you are going to be responsible for, you know, the opening and pushing and contributing to the, you know, the business and stuff. So that was our agreement. And of course we did our operating agreement. We had no attorneys to do operating agreement. So we just like try to, you know, put something together.
Find there was templates online.
Yeah, exactly. Like, tweak it and put it, which in a way can be good, but sometimes it can cost you so much, you know what I mean? So because now these agreements are something that they hold you liable to. Like, you signed, you know, now I'm gonna really use it, and X, Y, and Z paragraph, I can flex this, you know what I mean? So it definitely, when signing some of these agreements, it's like really looking over them and really seeing if you do feel comfortable with what's really happening, right? So at the time, obviously it was all a rush, and it's like, we got to make this. So I didn't have the time to do that, and I didn't have the experience. You know what I mean? Sure. A lot has to do with experience.
Right? A lot of folks that are just hopping on this wave obviously doesn't have the experience because it's so new.
Yes.
And were these individuals like were they also verified to like to have a license, or were they just banking on like your verification of being able to apply for a license?
No, it was just my verification. Okay, no, they weren't verification,
and then they come in with they promise the capital in the building.
Yes, correct. So
so how do they even make it in the meeting? Or was the meeting just open for everyone and anyone?
Oh yeah, that DCR had a whole big workshop at Trade Tech. So Trade Tech Community College just opened it. It was like anybody can come and check out what's happening. So of course you have social equities and people that are just scouting. Hey, where are they? You know, so like scouting to see how they can connect, how they can partner up, and that's what it was.
You know, and I've heard of like these stories of like, you know, with predatory investments and lenders and all that, but I've never heard this side of things, right? So all right, cool, continue.
So it was very like that. So this was an open workshop for everybody that DCR was putting together to let you know what's the next step. But I feel like they just did it at Trade Tech because it was bigger space, you know. Absolutely. So it was open to everyone, and that's where we connected. So then of course I went and checked out the space. We were the space was on Sunset, which my district is Echo Park, right? So that's where we applied on Sunset and like almost Echo Park. So Echo Park Avenue. So then
you said Sunset and Echo Park.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's like near the stadium, like near the stadium entrance.
Yeah.
Where like all the bars are at and everything.
Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with now how Sunset looks, but if you're Sunset and Echo Park, so you have like the Golden Room, Monty's, Little Joy. So I was like smacked in the middle of like, so that's where her location was at. So we applied there, and it was silent for a very long time, right? DCR was just like, we didn't know anything, what was happening, if you were going to move forward, if you weren't. They picked the first 100. I didn't make the first 100. I was 145, I believe. So I was like right there, but wasn't. So for a very long time, we didn't know what was going to be the next step. So within that time frame, one of the partners that, you know, that had the property couldn't, you know, move forward with the business. We swapped her investment into her investment and her equity, you know, converted to a loan, and, you know, all kinds of other BS. So,
that's fine.
I was like all kinds of other BS. So, when that happened, you know, I was very, obviously the equity, what I didn't know then, and I could have been more aggressive then. And obviously now with experience and like fuck ups, you're just like, I could have, but was that technically, you know, her percentage should have came back to the company, you know, should have technically came back to the company. But instead, like, I was very gullible in believing that the equity that really belonged to her, and I signed over to the guys, that was truly the reason I even signed it over, was because it was like, we're gonna bootstrap, this equity is gonna be used to dilute, we're in this together, we're gonna, you know, open this shop up, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z. So I was just like, yes, kumbaya, let's go, you know, let's do it. We just want to get this shit going, open, let's go, like, because it's very capital intensive, you know, it's just a money pit for a very long time. So it's like, yeah, let's do it. So I believed in that, and I signed over the equity, and then little did I know, is like, okay, we're selling out all of our shit, you know? So it was a very hard pill to swallow, because I was just like, okay, yeah, cool. Like, I get it. You want to make your monies in this deal. Like, I get the business side of it, but then it was hard for me, because I was like, what happened to all this other stuff we were talking about moving forward? And I get it. Shit changes. You don't have the capital, and it's maybe for the best, right? Because we're going to be struggling forever if we even try to continue that route. So
she pulled out.
Yeah, and then they were they also pulled out the last two guys. So there was three of us in total. I don't know. Okay. I'm sorry for the confusion.
Yeah, no, you're good. Okay, so all three decided to pull out.
Yeah, it was first her, and then once equity was transferred over to the guys, and soon later, you know, obviously, you know, they can't sustain the business. It wasn't there. You know, they didn't have the capital to sustain the business. And that's when we started, you know, really looking for investments and investors. And for a very long time, I thought, you know, we were going to write this together. But then obviously they had different goals, different motives, whatever the case might be, you know? So it turned out that they just wanted to sell out completely. And then now I'm here sitting, having to fight for capital to stay, you know, in the business. And then they're fighting for capital, the monies they want to take for their investment, and their time or whatever. So, it was very ugly. It got ugly very quickly. You know, money talk, once money is involved or monies are the topic of conversations, you know, people get,
now, what were some of like
sticky?
Yeah, for sure. And what were some of like, so how, if you don't mind, even like the percentages, like did they have like a good amount of percentage of the licensing agreement for them to feel like they can try to sell it?
Well, at first they didn't. At first it was just like equity that they got for like, you know, their sweat equity, which was less than 10%. Well, just ballpark figure. Right. For both of them. And then, my female partner, right? She was the one with the higher percentage, you know, property and her investment, and then everything that she was going to put into as well. Yeah. So, like I mentioned, I signed over the 30% to them when initially it should have came to the company, you know? And I was under the impression that, you know, we were going to do the bootstrapping and build out this brand and this store and push it forward. And, you know, obviously we knew that they didn't have the money to push it forward. And it was a lot of, you know, back and forth of how do we get this money? Because we do want to stay in the business, but it's like, well, you know, how you're going to move it forward, you know? And I'm not trying to struggle forever on waiting on you to figure out your buckets, you know? So, that's when, you know, the whole sellout of selling their equity process started happening and taking place. And, it got very ugly very quickly, you know, because then now they're not just coming at like, okay, let's try to see how much we can pocket. It's also like, okay, like degrading me, you know, like I don't know what I'm doing, you know, and, you know, this is the reason why you're becoming so greedy is because, you know, this is the only thing you have going on, or like
some of the dialogue that they were giving to you.
Exactly. So it got very very, very ugly, you know? And then the fact of like trying to hold the property hostage because one of the partners was, you know, had their whole business in there, their whole other construction business in there. And like, you know, if you don't give me what I want, then I'm gonna stay here as long as I need to because you can't kick me out, you know? And not wanting to pay rent, and then I'm having to fight getting them kicked out, and you're not paying. It's a whole mess.
So you guys ended up finding a new property, and then but that new property was where it placed. Okay.
Yeah. So we had to. Dang. So I'm sorry. So when we were on Sunset, and once we found out that we were going to move forward, is when we had to relocate because we were bumped off by someone else that had applied within a few built structures from us. Yeah. So we were in the same literally block, just a few units away, and so we were bumped off, and then that's where we found our current location now. So 1858 Echo Park Avenue. You guys heard it here first. Yes.
But there's not with struggle, right? So you found the location, but this partner doesn't want to get out. You're dealing with this.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel with like just like the struggles of all that, like being, you know, a Latina, being, you know, a woman in the space, like what were some of the emotions that you were feeling and going through, and how did you overcome those feelings? Yeah,
so I was going through a lot of feelings. I was a whole freaking emotional roller coaster because I was feeling angry. I was feeling frustrated. I would feel defeated sometimes, and I'm over here fighting tooth and nail, you know. I felt it's exhausting, you know, like not knowing what direction the brand, what brand you're gonna, you know, if you're gonna create one, if you're not, because they were trying to link me with other brands that were very corporate, you know, and very white. So I was just like, that's not me. I can't connect.
Because under the license and under that, like there's different ways as to like how you can move forward with the license. Like you could start your own shop name and create it from the ground up, or you can partner with with brands with the license, right? Is that what it is?
You can partner up with other brands, and like you know, your retail space can become the other brands, you know, their first store or for your flagships, whatever. So you know, a lot of people at the time were scouting for licenses. You know, this was before like the market kind of crashed and stuff, you know? So they were scouting for licenses, and a lot of the connections were with like corporate people. So I just didn't flow. Like I didn't want to. Like I felt like I was selling my soul, you know?
Right. No, and it is. I mean, because it's definitely something that it's yours, right? And and you have a large piece. It's like you're giving away a part of
yourself,
right?
Your identity, right?
Absolutely.
So it was hard for me to try to even, you know, entertain any of the other people they like presented to me, but they were very aggressive because some of these companies, brands were giving them what they wanted in regards to their buyout, like how their buyout, you know, payout was going to look like, you know? So it became to a point where it's like kind of very, what do I want? And I was just like, no.
It's just wild to me to like, that these fools were like, yes, I have equity now and I'm going to sell it. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, that is
like
crazy.
I would get like, okay, like, but maybe that was their motive the whole time, right? Like, who knows? It was always to sell out. It was never to be in the game for a long period, you know? And of course, they're going to portray one thing one moment, and then, you know, when shit really starts flipping and, okay, now it's like, never mind, you know, let me take a step back. But it was very hard for me to like deal with the emotions and the disrespect and then the aggressive tactics, you know, that they were trying to use. And of course I had to lawyer up, you know, because I were like, oh, if you know, started receiving like threats to like my, you know, through my app. And it was just so much. So I just, you know, I got an attorney and like, was like, okay, well, you kind of deal with the legalities of everything. But it was still draining, like, you know, and that also, you know, didn't help me like really push me to like, okay, let me really thrive in this industry, like really start paving my way, because it's just like, it's hard to try to be creative when you're just fogged up by all kinds of other like negative emotions, you know? So it was a very hard time for me, but thankfully, you know, I out of all the people they connected me, you know, thankfully I met Jason, you know, if anything came good, I met Jason, you know, I met Jason.
Jason's a good guy. Shout out to you, Jason.
Yes. Woo, Jay. So I met Jason McKnight from Greenlabel RX and his wife, Kelly, and they shared their story when I first sat on the table, and then I just connected with them. Like I felt their struggle, I felt their pain, I felt the love and passion, their, you know, commitment to like their family, to like growing, you know, so that all like I connected with that. So I was like, okay, let's like, feels good. Like, let's entertain the conversation more. And then you finally,
this time you knew better.
Yeah.
This time you knew like baby steps, let's move. Okay.
Yeah. So,
and you know what's crazy too is that like just hindsight, right? Like hindsight's always 20/20. Like just because of your upbringing, like you at least had some type of like wherewithal of like, you know, lawyering up after all the bullshit and like doing all these things where like I think anyone else in that situation probably would have just given it up or like done things. But because you grew up in an environment where your mom owns a business, your dad owns this business, that like that environment that you grew up with, like although like maybe it wasn't even thought of in the moment, but it's still like prepped you for like obviously these challenges that you're unfortunately experiencing in the moment. But like what were your parents' thoughts when like, was it like one of those like I fucking told you so kind of deal? Like
my mom has the spidey senses, so she'd be like, cuando someone no le cae bien, Sorry. So she's like, no, the energy, like it's too much talk, too much verb, like there's too much language going on, not enough action. So my mom's like, back your words up with your action, you know, like don't just tell me shit, like really show me what the fuck you're about, you know? So she has that and she's very direct. So, and my dad is too, but my dad is a little bit more like chill. Like he'd try to be like, okay, let's try to soften things up, but he'll tell you what it is, but on a more softer, like mellow tone.
That sounds like me.
Yeah. He'll tell you what the real, but a more mellow, my mom's like, no, I'm gonna tell you how it is with my emotions, with my fingers, with my hands, everything, right? Like so having a little bit of both, like I can feel that they did prep me for that, because when I had to think like my dad in regards to like, okay, you know, mellow down, don't respond with your emotions. Like I did that. I was able to, like, I just reflected on that. And then when I needed to be like real and straight up, like my mom. So yes. So I can honestly say that they did prep me for that. And I did see that growing up, and they were like, never give up, like never, don't give up in a battle. Like it's better to like, you know, give a good battle than for you guys to just like, you know, just always be nicking at each other. It's he says it in Spanish, and I don't want to quote him because I'll butcher it all the way, you know. But he's like, it goes in somewhere and like that, you know. It's better to give a good battle and really you guys hash it out than just to like, you know, leave it hanging and then, you know, all this drama and like, you know, it's a lot of like, you know, whispers and, you know, So yeah, they really did prep me. And at the time when I was going through all this, you know, my dad was just like, okay, you know, he would give me the best advice as he could. He would, you know, ask for like, be aggressive, be assertive. Don't let them try to like, you know, just because they're trying to use these aggressive tactics. Like, you know, it got to the point where we don't condone violence, but my dad's like, what that motherfucker needs is a good ass beat down. That's what he needs. He wants to act hood one day, and the next is like, I'm calling my lawyer. So it's like, pick a fucking side. It's like, pick a side, you know? So, and it was, like I said, we don't condone violence. So it was very hard for, you know, my family also, because my dad many times wanted to step in, you know. At the end of the day, I'm his daughter, you know, it's only me and my brother, you know, so I am the only girl, the oldest, you know, but so there was times where he did want to step in, and obviously my mom was just like, say what's on your mind, you know, don't back down, don't feel intimidated. Right. So that really helped me, you know, really helped me on like, okay, I'm gonna stand my ground, I'm gonna fight what I think it's right for me and the business, because at the end of the day, you guys are walking out, like, yes, you know, you're getting your payout, whatever, but I have to be grinding. I'm here trying to really make it happen. I'm really trying to just do what I really wanted to start what I finished, because this was always when I knew I wanted to step into the space, like when I started looking for, and I bumped into the DCR and the equity, like I had already made my mind, like this is what I'm going to do. You know what I mean? So for me, it was no like going back. For me, it was not like I'm a sellout. For me, like you said, a lot of people would have gave up. It's not for me, you know?
Okay.
So.
All right. So you're going through this, you find a solid partner in Jason and his wife and Green Label. What were the steps then moving forward after that? Like how did everything start to unravel?
After that, well, once we closed off that deal, like it for Jason and I was like pedal to the metal. We have to do, let's get it, let's make it grow, let's make it happen. I believe in him. I'm sure he believes in me. And we just, want to create legacy, for our family, for ourselves. So for me, it was just like, okay, I'm taking, my dad is the contractor. My mom actually runs the construction now. Yay, 2 women in construction. It's another male dominant industry. So it's very hard, for women out there in construction. So, all the women that are out there getting it, so they're actually doing our build out at the store.
Oh,
so nice. Yeah, so it's really nice because I have my uncle, working there. I have my
from San Bernardino.
Not him. other uncle. Okay. My dad's brother, so I have my dad's brother working there. I have my grandma's husband there, and like
so it's real like family.
Yeah,
it's a real family business going on here with this retailer.
Yes, cool. Exactly. So as our build out is being built out, like my cousin is doing our plans, and he's an architect, so he's getting our plans approved and stuff. So it just feels beautiful to like be able to do this and include my family like in the build out process and include them in the growth and everything I've been through, like, and kind of share that with them. It's very beautiful feeling to be able to share that with them.
Yeah, I'm sure. I could only imagine. And I'm sure your parents are feeling a lot better about the situation now with
and I'm very tight with my parents, so
and you can see that. I mean, I follow you on Instagram, and the interactions that you and your family have. It looks very beautiful to see. Like,
thank you.
The relationship you guys have, and that's dope.
Yeah, they're very young parents, so I think that helps. I mean, not saying that their parents, but it really it really helps a lot to connect and then to understand you, and then as I have my own children, like I really understand all their push. Like that's when you really start, as you grow up and you have your own kids, you'll be like, oh, that's why my parents were like X, Y, and Z with me. So yes, I'm very tight with my family. So it's really nice to share this experience with them.
Absolutely. And so you brought up your children. What's it like to be a mother in the cannabis space?
Yeah.
Have you experienced any pushback on that? Have you experienced any side eyes, or has it all been pretty positive?
Yeah. No, there is side eye, there is the side eye. I feel that a lot of mothers in the cannabis space do experience that, and some will be blunt in your face, and other people will just, like she's doing this and she's doing that, and she has kids, So I feel that a lot of women in the cannabis space and Latinas do feel that side eye, right? But it's been something that I'm at the process learning, because like I said, I was very hush. Like I wouldn't even post myself smoking or, eating edibles or like any of that stuff. So for me to like be doing that now, it's also a big change for me. Like it's just a transition. And so far, I mean, they haven't came to my face and told me anything. Okay. I'm waiting. No, I'm just kidding. I'm waiting for you guys. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, what about that friend that one friend from back in the day? Do you guys still talk?
It's funny you say that. Yeah, I just connected with her, but we haven't had this conversation. Okay. Like we lost connection for a long time, and I recently just connected. I bumped into her because both our kids were playing soccer together, so nice. In the same park and stuff. So I bumped into her, and I was like, oh my god! But no, we haven't had that combo. But a lot of my friends, I do have obviously friend moms, and they are also very quiet, or they come to me and ask me like, what do you think about trying this? Or like I had a friend reach out, not an acquaintance, not a friend, but an acquaintance reach out, and she was just like, I just had my baby and I'm breastfeeding, but I'm going through this. I would like to try cannabis. What do I use that, is it all THC? So I try to guide her the best I could, and I try to share, what might work for her, but everyone's different. At the end of the day, you got to look at what works for you. And, I can only like recommend what I think might be, and it's all up to you, right? But overall, I do have, moms my friends that do reach out, and they do ask me,
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and it's great you brought that up. My partner also saying like during the pregnancy, we were using a lot of topicals for for her the pain that she was experiencing or the inflammation that she would experience being pregnant, and so of course every family makes their own decisions as to like how they want to use medicine, and that was our decision to make, but it's important for us to like, at least for me and our family, to share that like we've done it, we've tried it, and it helped her, like you said. Everyone has their own interaction and own experiences. But yeah, we definitely used it.
Yeah. And it's good that you're also being open about it, because it's not spoken about, right? And it's like, I'm receiving these messages like in DMs, so it's not like they're also being open themselves. So it's a lot of still discretion around that whole conversation of children and cannabis, and as there should be, right? We got to protect our kids all the time and be on it and all that stuff, you know. But there is still a lot of like hush hush around, you know, the two. So I definitely understand them, because I am still kind of there. You know, I do still have my imposter mom moments where I'm just like, oh my God, do I really want to showcase me doing X, Y, and Z, or consuming or smoking or eating an edible or whatever? But who cares? Like at this point, it's just like, you do what makes you happy. Like you got to do what makes you happy. And then the more you start thinking about other people and what they think, it's the more you're fogged up with your reality. Like what's really your reality and what makes you happy. So I'm in that space where I'm like letting go of like the shackles of guilt, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
There really are guilt shackles, right? Because you feel guilty. So I'm like ready to thrive in my space and like just feel open and like this is who I am and this is my family and this is what what makes me happy, you know.
And I'm glad you're able to release that, because it's like it's no different than, you know, a parent, you know, taking a glass of wine at the end of the day and their children are obviously present around that, right? Or you know, or anyone that maybe takes a few drinks or whatever, and especially in a Latino household, right? Like Latino households, like
if there ain't no beer, it ain't cracking.
Exactly. And we're very open about consuming those things in front of our children, and with no qualms about it. But they're obviously,
and it's actually worse too, because you actually. People can't even be belligerent, you know, they can't even stand up straight. So like, I feel like alcohol, you know, it compares a lot to cannabis, and it tried to compare it a lot to cannabis, but there's really no comparison. Like, you know, after 3 to 4 drinks, you lose coordination. Maybe you can't even drive, or depending on your tolerance, right? So, and you have
not only that, but you're bodily function, like your organs are, like you start to develop cirrhosis, and that can lead to death. And you know, so there's a lot of organ failures that's associated to you know, just drinking and all of that, and
alcoholism and all that stuff. And that's actually very true, because that's how my dad's father died from, you know, too much alcohol consumption, you know, and he did develop that. So it was it's very real in the Latino community, but it's also something we look past and we kind of accept it, because that's just us, right? That's just it's okay.
Absolutely.
So it's a lot. It's more common to see, you know, beer bottles or, you know, Patron bottles on the table, Don Julio bottles on the table, than it is to see a bong, you know, right? You see a bong on the table, it's like, oh shit, what's happening here, you know? And it's like, and you're just like, okay, but you can have all these bottles, but that's a whole nother situation. That's a whole nother topic and stuff. But I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. That happens to me often.
No, that's definitely a lot of great points there. The shop.
Yes.
What are some of the things that you see yourself doing with the shop? You know, obviously it's going to be called Green Label, right? Are you guys going to be doing any community organizing, community events? I know you guys are in Echo Park, and Echo Park, you know, just historically, when you think of Echo Park, depending on where you're from, you know, there's a lot of negative, you know, there's also some positive. There's a lot of gentrification going on within this city.
A lot.
How do you, as a Latina, as a Black and brown owned business now, do you guys see yourselves like in, you know, what's the word? I can't even think of the word right now.
Like being badass? Yes.
Being badass, yes.
Like being badass. Yeah, no.
Yes. How do you guys see yourselves like with like embedding yourselves in the community and getting people to
to connect with us, right? Yes,
exactly.
yes. It's very big. Where, especially where we are, we're very much in I think what it's called the retail island or whatever. So we're commercial island. So we're like, it's a commercial like units, and then we're surrounded by residential. And so it's so we're like commercial units, and then our neighbors are residential. And then further up the block, you have more commercial units. So it is very important and priority for us to really connect with our community. And it's very much gentrified. Like, it's not being, it happened, it's there, it's right in your face. So for me, it's like, okay, how do we connect with the gentrification that's happening, right? And also stay true and real to our brown and black, right? On like bridging the two, and not so much in your, I don't want to say so much in your face, but like, let's be real. If we're too crazy, they get scared, So we have to really connect with our community on more of an intimate level. But that's always been my priority. For me, when I envision myself opening up a retail space, even before Green Label, even before I met the guys, right? I will continue this, was to always lead with, obviously, thinking about my family, but also with my community, right? How do I connect with my community? How do I get to a point where I can give back? Or how do I get to a point where I can create an outlet to be able to give back? So it is important that we do create the events that we have. And we have a side patio area that we're ready, once because we're in construction right now. So once construction, at least we get the dumped out, like really start utilizing our space to start creating these community events, and like bringing other brands, and like, sharing the space together, sharing our struggles together, and also our victories. That's very important. Like when we sit down and talk, it's like a lot of okay, what did you go through? What did you experience? But it's like, okay, what did you accomplish? Like your victories, your wins, So it's also shining light on that. So I'm excited. I'm really excited. Yeah. It's been a long time coming. I've been at this since 2019, and I'm just like, oh, what is it? It's like I'm on a little turtle. I'm in the little train that could, right?
There you go. Yeah.
So I'm really excited that we're way closer, and much more closer than I was even 4 or 5 months ago. You know what I mean? So we do plan, like bringing it back, we do plan on connecting with our community. So we're right by Elysian Park. So you still have, and I was just talking to one of my colleagues too, that he actually brought it up and brought it up real good, that you do have like the lowriders that post up every Saturday. We're right behind Elysian Park. So it's like, how do we connect with that community to like shine light on that? Or how do we connect, with, bringing more wellness? So like that, those around us feel safe and don't look at us like, oh, here's another trap shop or a cannabis shop. It's like, no, we're here. We are hardworking people that are running a legitimate business, and we are offering wellness services and product to you guys that eventually either your puppy or you're gonna need. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of dog lovers out there, and CBD works for them too.
Absolutely. For sure. That sounds dope, and it sounds like, great things are coming. Do you guys have an expected like date? Of when things should be opening up?
Yeah, so we're fighting with the city right now. Sorry, disclaimer. No, just kidding. No, the city, don't come for me, city. No, I'm just kidding. For more so building and safety. So we had a hiccup because our location is a mixed use. So we had a residential part in the front, and then in the back was a commercial. So we had to switch the use from mixed use to commercial, all of it. And because of that, like the city requires increase in parking. And that was our biggest hurdle because we didn't have the space. And then obviously our landlord, you're dealing with landlords, right? They have to at least my landlord has to approve certain remodels or constructions on the property. And for him, we do have the location is where there's the bottom patio area, and then the stairs to the parking lot. The stairs to the parking lot. So the only way of going around that parking situation was kind of creating a whole parking lot, going from like the front of the property, eliminating the patio area, and then going up to the actual parking lot, right? And of course, that was a no-no. Like, he's like, no, we're not knocking down the big tree in the middle, because we have a nice, beautiful tree in the patio that gives amazing shade during spring and summer. So, like, we're not knocking down the tree. We're not doing this. So how are we going to go around that? You know, like, so that was a very big hurdle, and the city was not budging in regards to, like, we're in Echo Park. Every shop out here, like, there's no parking. Every shop is like a small boutique. Everything is like walking distance. Come on in. So, like, do we really need that extra parking? And we were down by one parking. So not until this year, the city put in an ordinance that if you're, I don't know how many feet, but God, we made it. I don't know how many feet it is away from a bus stop, that you don't need to increase your parking stuff. And we literally have a bus stop at an angle from us. So that kind of saved our ass. And, and now we're able to push our construction more aggressive, but we still need two more clearances. Once we get that cleared, we want to finish construction in February. I know we have the March deadline with the state, that they're saying you got to submit your state application to get a provisional license. So we're definitely trying to meet that deadline as well. We are not trying, we're going to meet that deadline, right? It's like, for real, we're meeting that deadline. So I realistically, summer. As long
as you just submit the floor plans.
Yeah. I know. And be like, oh, I fucked up everything the same form.
No, honestly, just submit the floor. That's what we did.
Yeah.
That's how we experienced it. We submitted our floor plans. We did all that just to meet the deadlines. But we still, like, because then you still gotta wait. Because then you still have to wait. Like, there's still a process of waiting, right? And then in that process of waiting, and then once you get all that, and then you get clearance from the licensing from there, then they'll schedule the inspections maybe a few more weeks down the line. So you still have that in between time, the inside information.
Yeah, no, that's good.
That time to, like, still finish out construction and all that.
Wink, wink.
But turn in all your forms as if it's already complete.
Yeah.
They're not asking for the pictures of, let me see it complete. Yeah. They're just asking for the floor plan.
It's more so our construction is. It's once we get those approved, our construction is going to be done by February. So it's really just waiting on the state. Yeah. Like, you know, it's really just waiting on the state. So whatever process the state takes,
if you got city, you're good.
Yeah.
As long as you have city, you're good.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. That's what I learned.
Yeah.
That's what I learned. As long as city's approved, because the cities, like, ultimately they're the ones that are going to write up on you, not the state. Yeah. The city will. Yeah. So long as city's clear and you're good, keep it pushing.
We're going to keep it pushing. Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
You got any, I'm going to shout out my girls, Dalia, Rosie, Faith. I love you girls, as I do in every episode. Any shout outs that you want to give out?
Oh, yes. Well, so I'm shouting out babies. I want to shout out my babies too. Logan, Landon, my little ones. You know, they're amazing. They're my why, my push. So even though I'm pulling my hair every morning to get them ready for school, there's joy. My mom, my dad, I want to shout you guys out. My brother, he's actually in the military, just came back home from Poland. So I'm very happy that he's back in the States. So, hey, brother.
Thank you for your service.
Yay. And of course, my family, my community, Echo Park, Greenlabel. Yeah. I'm very excited. And I just can't wait to have you guys at my shop.
There you go. And y'all heard it here first. Go ahead and give the address again.
Oh, yes. Our address is 1858 Echo Park Ave, zip code 90026.
There you go.
Yes.
You guys heard it here first. Yes. And with that being said, let's check you guys out.
Yay. Oh, my God. Yay. Oh, thank you.